All right. So here we are, the second session of songwriting with Stu Pender, one of our wonderful Tunelark guitar instructors. And without further ado, I'd like to let Stu take it to the next level, which was to apply that music theory to your instrument. Take it away.
Yeah, hey everybody. Glad you could make it out tonight. And yeah, last week we were talking about kind of we went through a crash course of the fundamentals of music theory. Um, 12 notes in our kind of Western music chromatic scale, um, picking out a palette, a major scale, and, and building chords out of the major scale. And we talked about how we can have a one chord, a two chord, three, four, five, six, and seven chords. And those are built off of the first degree, second, third, fourth, fifth, and seventh degrees of the scale. Um, and a triad being, three notes, and each time you just skip one. So we have our C major scale. If we have a one chord, we go one, skip this one. That's our three. And then we go skip this one. And we have our five. And so on. And so we can build what's called a chord scale. That's where we left it off last time. We were taking GarageBand, just a free tool, to enter some of those chords into a computer so they could play it for us. And of course, though, we want to play it on our instruments. So let's get started with that. I'm just going to pull up our music theory sheet that we looked. Oh, can I screen share? Cool. Thanks. All right. So one of the things that we might have not touched on a ton is that each chord in our major scale on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 has an inherent structural quality built into it. And that's determined by the length of notes between our what we call the root, the first note, the third, which is the skip the first note and skip the next note and you get to the third, and then skip one and you get to the fifth. So root, third, fifth. And the distance between the root and the third and the distance between the root and the fifth is what's going to give us our chord quality. So based on the scale structure, which if we go up here, we can see, actually, let's go down to this one. This is a little better. So if we go C to E, skip the second note, C to E, and C to G. We're going to get a C major triad. And you can see that this C to E has a distance of 1, 2, 3, 4 notes on our chromatic scale. On the guitar, that's 4 frets, and that's called a major third in music. And C to G is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes to get to G. And so that's going to be a perfect fifth. 6 notes sometimes will be a diminished fifth. And we can see there's going to be a diminished chord on the 7th degree. And then a minor third is going to be 3 notes, 3 half steps. So that's going to give us our chords. We have major, minor, diminished. Major is going to be root, major third, perfect fifth. Minor is root, minor third, perfect fifth. And diminished is going to be root, minor third, and diminished fifth. So let's take that to the guitar. We're going to use some common chord shapes. These are open chords in the key of... These are just open chord shapes. This is a system called caged popularly on the guitar. So we're going to use this to kind of map out some common major and minor chords on the guitar, and then how we can move them around to find specific chords. So the first one is C major. We're starting on the A string, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, open, 1st fret on the B, and open E. Now, the second one is going to be C minor, and I usually say to skip this one because that 3rd to 1st fret there is a pretty big stretch for a lot of people. So you can skip this one if you want, but it's a nice one to know that it's there. Now we're moving on to A. So this is a very popular shape. These aren't all in a key that works together, but these are common, so C minor to A is a strange move. But A, this is a very common bar chord shape that we see on the guitar, and it starts on the A string, open, 2, 2, 2, open. To make this minor, we bring the B string down a fret, open, 2, 2, 1, and open. And so what we're going to start doing with these is we can move them around. We can know them in an open position, and that's the way to start. But you're often and very quickly on the guitar, you'll find that, oh yeah, if we walk up the scale from A, maybe we want to play a C major, like this A major shape, but we want to play a C major. The guitar is really nice. We can take a shape and we can move it, the exact same shape, and we just move it up a few frets. So in the case of going from A to C, we go up A, B, C. And so moving up through the chromatic scale from A to C, we have our musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And most notes from note to note are going to be 2 half steps. There's 2 exceptions, and this is a really good thing to write down if you have a pad of paper. It's going to be B to C and E to F. B to C and E to F are just 1 half step apart, as opposed to 2, which is the rest of the letters. And on the guitar, that translates to a fret. So if we're going to take this A chord, we want to bring it up to a C major, let's say. We can do this with any of the chords, by the way, any of the open chords. We're bringing an A up to C major. So let's go A, B, C. Let's count our way up. A, B major. Now we kind of have to adjust our fingers. These open strings kind of have to be taken care of by our index finger. So there's a little bit of finesse in this. We're accounting for what was once open now has to go up 2 frets. And then B to C, remember, that's one of our exceptions. So B, that's up 1 fret. So now we've got that nice A chord shape as a bar chord. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do around it too, but this is something you'll start to come across in guitar music, is these shapes. And that's why this caged system is so popular. These are very caged. There's no particular rhyme or reason behind it, except that they're very common shapes you come across on the guitar, and you can move them around, and they essentially start as open position on the guitar. That's the best way to learn them. And so, okay, we've done C, C minor, A, A minor, and now we've got G. This is a good one. We've got ring finger, 3, 2, open, 3, 3. Actually, I would do middle finger to start that off. Middle, index, open, pretty common one. And the next one, we're bringing that index finger down on the A string here to the 1st fret. It's a little tougher to grab. That's also why I say skip this one. But for the more adventurous people out there, go for it. That's a shape you can bring up, you know. Here's, you know, our major. So I'm just taking these open chords now, and I'm using my index finger to replace the open string. And I'm kind of sliding them around. Eventually we'll want to map it to a key. That's what I'm doing, but you know, we'll want to kind of talk through that to figure out which frets to go to and what key we're in. So the next one is going to be, it's one called E major. This is a really common one. Get a lot of mileage out of this. We got open E string, 2, 2, 1, open, open, and the minor version. So we're going from our major third we've been talking about, and we were talking, you know, the major third is 4 half steps above the root, and the minor third is 3 half steps above the root. So 4 to 3, that's always, we're always dropping it a fret. We're always, where's the third, and we bring it down 1 fret. So that's our difference between major and minor on the guitar. And so here, let's go through that example of, you know, how do we translate this into another key? So we have E major, and we said that all of the notes going up the musical alphabet have 2 half steps between them, except for 2 exceptions. We have E to F, B to C. So let's just do something simple. Let's go from E to F. That's one of our exceptions. That's one of our exceptions of the rule. So we're gonna go up 1 fret, and we just, on the tablature, you know, you could do a little math equation and add 1 to each number. There you've got your F major chord. It's really nice. Not all instruments have this really nice quality of being able to learn one shape and then move it to all keys. If we wanted to move it from F to G, we just take this shape, and we know F to G, that's 1 letter in the musical alphabet. That's going to be 2 half steps, or it's also commonly known as 1 whole step. So we're translating these chords into different keys now, using the caged system. And we've got 2 more of them. We've got D major. We start with the open D string, 2nd fret on the G, 3rd fret on the B, and 2nd fret on the high E string. And so this is one, you know, I've heard it in a lot of pop tunes. This is Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. Kind of a, yeah, just thought of that actually. And it's funny, in the chorus it actually goes to D minor. That song has both of them in there. So we're switching the 3rd, we're bringing it down a fret, and that's on, you always know what the 3rd is if you're switching from major to minor. It's the one that goes down a fret. So. That's how it sounds in Norwegian Wood. So we have D major, D minor. And these ones, you know, you can move them also. Here's a trick. This is, you know, sometimes moving the chords and using your index finger as the open string per se it takes a lot of technique. Bar chords are one of the hardest things to learn on the guitar and to play cleanly. So we have this great tool called the capo, and that will basically do the job of your index finger. And so say we want to take any of these chords on this sheet up a whole step. We get our handy capo and we just bring it to the 2nd fret, clamp it on, and so now our C major, now that's a D major chord. Our C minor is D minor, and we know that because we just went up 2 half steps, and so that means so we went up 2 half steps, and so we're going to have to count up from C to D. In the case of A is going to become B. A minor becomes B minor. G becomes A. So far these have all been pretty clean because we haven't come across any of our exceptions to the rule, the half steps. G minor. G minor becomes A minor, so we've counted up from G to A. This is actually a kind of confusing point in the musical scale. We go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A, so it's not like the the actual alphabet. And now we've got, the next one is going to be E. So here's an exception to the rule. We said E to F was one of the exceptions. So we're going to have to call this one we have to call this F sharp. That means, and sharp means 1 half step above. And now we're going to E minor shape, which would be F sharp minor. And to finish it off, we've got D major, and that's going up a whole step, so D, E. This becomes E major now. D minor becomes E minor. And so we can count up this way, up the whole fretboard with the capo, or just with our hand. You know, we can use the index finger as a capo as well. And that will open up a, huge amount of chords to you. I don't want to do the math right now, but 12 frets per chord. So, and so now we can go back to our theory sheet, and we can, let's find a key, let's say we want to do C major. And so we can see that we're going to have to do a little searching on our sheet here. Our 1 chord is C. And what we're doing is we're going to find the chords in the key of C major, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And, the corresponding major or minor that would apply to each one. And we're starting with the 1 chord, that's C. And we want to find the 2 chord, so that was D minor. And so, scroll down. The next one was E minor, that's the 3 chord. So you can already get a sense of, some musicality, a song coming out of this, just from 3 of the chords in the major scale here. We had C, D minor, E minor, our 3 chord. The next one's the 4 chord. It's F major. And we don't have a chord on this sheet for F major, but we know our trick. E to F, 1 half step. So let's bring this E major, let's bring it up a fret. And so we add, we can do the math on the tablature. You can add 1 to each number on there. And this requires a big bar from the index fingers, so sometimes it's easier to just grab the D, G, B, and E strings for this one if you don't want to do the big six string bar. So we've got C, 1 chord, D minor, 2 chord, E minor, the 3 chord, and F, the 4 chord. Now we talked about a special chord last week that was out of the key, and it was called the minor 4, and it's a nice chord sometimes when you're resolving back to the 1. And we get that by taking our E minor shape and bringing it up a fret. Or we can, and we can see how this first fret becomes the open string, or in the case of F, it'll be the 2nd fret becoming the 1st fret. Minor 4. So that's a special out of key chord. And it resolves really nicely back to the 1 chord, which is C. Here's our F minor, and C. So let's get to the 5 chord. That's going to be G major. So we can use our shape. Sometimes I play this one also with an open B string, everything else the same. I kind of like there's a few ways to play. There's a few ways to play a lot of these chords. And so, you can see it's a pretty vast study, and it really does actually help to sit down with a teacher with these, because it can be, our entire history of written music pretty much is based on these simple cowboy chords, but it can get quite complex. So here's our 5 chord. Let's resolve this 5 chord back to the 1 chord. Back to the 5. How about to the 4? Maybe do the 4 minor. And back to the 1. Now, there's one chord that is a really special chord. It's the relative minor is what it's normally called. And it's very closely related to the 1 chord. And that's the 6 chord. And so that's in this key, it's going to be A minor. So let's find we do have an A minor on our sheet. And that's going to be, so we all know this sound, going from the 1 chord, C, to the 6 chord, 6 minor, A minor. Now maybe to the 5. So the one that we're kind of leaving out today is going to be the 7 chord. And it's a diminished chord, and it's, you're not going to find as many open voicings for a diminished chord. It's certainly used. It's certainly, don't let me make you believe that it's not a common chord, but it's gets a little more complex. And with the open chords and the caged system, which is a very popular way to kind of start learning some chords on the guitar, it is left out. But that's, it's a chord you can always add. But for today's purposes, we're not gonna play it. So we've got 6 of the 7 today. And so, let's walk through those again, and then we'll have some time for questions. We've got C, our 1 chord, D minor, our 2 chord, E minor, our 3 chord, F, our 4 chord, G, our 5 chord, and A minor, our 6 chord. And then we had kind of our extra one that's just for fun, our minor 4, which is F minor in the key of C. And then we'll resolve it back to C major. So that's an intro to putting some chords on the guitar and having a really strong palette for songwriting. Yeah, and so let me know if there's any questions, and yeah, we can.
Hey Stu, I'm not seeing any questions right now, but it might be fun for you to do a little intro about what you want to cover in session 3.
Yes, absolutely. So these past 2 sessions have been very theory heavy, very dense, and probably each one of these topics could be studied for months and months, or probably years on end, to really dissect all of the information out of them. Next week's a little more easygoing. It's just using your intuition and the inner ear, and starting to just be able to kind of trust your ear. I had a lot of teachers who would tell me that we learn all of this theory stuff so that we can forget it when we're in the moment playing. So that's kind of the theme of next week's.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. And hopefully next week we'll get to hear a little bit of what you create with this palette.
Yes, yeah, I'll bring in some music. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, thank you very, very much.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.